Hello everyone and welcome to Hot Cars, and you join me today with the 2021 VW Tiguan Highline that has been given to me for a couple days by Country Hills VW. Many thanks to them for allowing me to play around with their demo model. Here I have it in the Highline trim with the R-Line appearance package. This is VW's compact crossover and an incredibly successful vehicle. It was released in 2019 and there have been a couple of changes throughout this vehicle since its introduction, and as it's been a while since I've been able to test out a Tiguan, I'm really looking forward to getting back behind the wheel. But there is going to be a facelift and quite a few other revisions to the Tiguan for the 2022 model year. Here's a couple images up on the screen. You'll see that it looks a lot more like the Mark 8 Golf, which we still haven't received in North America, and it gets the latest user interface along the steering wheel, the climate control. That's all sort of the touch system, which I'm personally a little bit skeptical of. But with this one here, if you know the current generation of Tiguan, there isn't too much to report in here. There's a couple of small changes that I've noticed that I will mention, but this is a vehicle that really truly excels at its given mission so unbelievably well. If you want a compact crossover that has more space than most and is incredibly refined, then stop looking and just go straight for this. It is an excellent vehicle, but it isn't without its faults. So let's go for a drive so I can share with you everything that I think you need to know about the 2021 VW Tiguan. So something I want to address from the top is that the Tiguan isn't really the enthusiast choice. The exterior and the interior design is very subdued. Some might call it bland, but just because this thing is so well made and everything that you interact with feels like it's coming from a much more expensive vehicle company, I've got no issues with it. Yes, it doesn't seem to be exciting really in any capacity, but this might be the most pleasant vehicle to be in this class. First of all, from the driving position, steering is a little lifeless, but it is weighted well. The 184 horsepower, 221 pound-feet of torque turbocharged 4-cylinder engine is pretty responsive, and it can pick up speed very quickly. It sounds a little gruff. If I just turn around here for a second, and maybe you'll be able to hear the engine note. It does sound a little gravelly, but that's just the engine note. You don't really hear any exhaust coming from this vehicle during your drive, and it's a very refined vehicle. On the highway, it's almost as good as an Audi. I say almost because there's some degrees of refinement that Audi would like to keep to themselves, but if you're looking for a mainstream brand that makes the most premium compact crossover, in terms of refinement, I think this Tiguan is incredibly hard to beat. And unless you're really pushing this motor to help gain to speed, it hides away in the background. You don't feel any vibration coming into the cabin. You start off with front wheel drive with the Tiguan, but you can pay extra in the base trim to get the 4Motion all-wheel drive system. But when you go further up in the trim levels, it will become standard equipment. You have the ability to shift gears manually with the gear shifter, and there's a few different driving modes that you can select from. You can go from snow, on-road modes, and off-road modes, and with the on-road mode, that includes Eco, Normal, Sport, and Custom. Behind the wheel of the Tiguan, the thing that stands out most to me is just how pleasant it is to drive this thing. It's incredibly refined, very quiet on the highway, and it isn't something that focuses so much on the driving experience, but it does reward you with a very comfortable and incredibly easy to live with commuter. I like just being in the Tiguan, interacting with everything in this car is simple, very effective, and feels good whilst doing so. Even with a driving experience that's not really going to excite anyone, I like being in this Tiguan because it just feels like you are getting a lot out of your money in terms of refinement. Another reason why a lot of people would love being in the Tiguan is that it really does feel like it's the largest vehicle in terms of interior space in this class of car. I'm 6'4" and I would very comfortably sit behind myself. You can slide those seats forwards and backwards, recline them slightly. So if you're looking for the compact crossover with the best use of interior space, I think the Tiguan could be that vehicle for you too. Lifting up the false floor, you'll see that you've got space to hide away the security cover, and there's a space saver spare wheel with a little more open space. Now the interior design might be quite dark and a bit bland, but there's plenty to be attracted to in the Tiguan. For example, all of the buttons that you interact with and the touchscreen is very easy to use and feels very satisfying, well engineered. The touchscreen has a motion sensor, so when you get closer, the icons expand so they'll be easier to click. You have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. All the buttons feel succinct and purposeful like they do in an Audi. And the digital instrument cluster has a lot of customization to it. I particularly like that with the door cards, yes, they are large enough to house a big 1 litre sized water bottle, but they're covered in felt, so when you're going on rough bits of road, you don't have all of your stuff rattling around in there and making horrible noises. So that solves a very particular problem that I'm very satisfied is taken care of. The Fender speaker system in this vehicle is definitely punching above its weight, and the R line is just an appearance package outside of the R badging that you see on the outside and the inside, those larger black plastic pieces on the bumper, and the previously mentioned 19-inch rims. There isn't really a lot to speak about. I am fond of these seats. They've got really nice side bolstering around the legs and a little bit around the torso, so if you were any larger than me, maybe it would feel a bit tight. And apart from the main areas where you rest your elbows or hold stuff or, immediately in reach, that's all very nice. That all feels good. But anything outside of that is quite hard plastics, but at least it's as solid as a brick and feels like it could outlive me. So I honestly can't find much to complain in that respect. Two other small details I'd like to mention. On a very wet, mucky day like today, I love that with the Tiguan, the doors totally cover the side of the vehicle, so when you get in and out of the car, you don't get your pants or your legs mucky. And this has the built-in spray for the rear camera, which is a feature that I have seen on quite a few new cars, but I hope it's something that will be featured on every single new car in the future, because one, it's incredibly useful, and two, it's just a really smart solution to something that we wish we had years and years ago. Another small feature that I've just remembered is that when you're on the highway and you have the adaptive cruise control set, I like how when someone moves into your lane, as long as it's, not within a bumper's reach, the car doesn't brake, instead it just coasts. And that's an excellent feature because you get into a lot of cars with that safety system and someone might be moving into your lane a good 3-4 car lengths away, but that's enough to engage the system that it hits the brakes so hard that it's hard to trust them. This one is particularly better than most systems I've interacted with. So to wrap up my thoughts on the Tiguan, it feels unremarkable at first, but the more you spend time with it, the more you appreciate it, the more you realize that a lot of people that are buying cars are just looking for a tool, an appliance, something to help them get from point A to point B. And if they're particularly focused on getting a lot of car for their money and filling that car with a lot of stuff, the Tiguan may be a rational choice as opposed to an emotional one, but if you're applying that again to an appliance, then who can really blame you? I really think this Tiguan is amongst the best in class. So that wraps up all of my thoughts with the Tiguan. Even though it's far from the vehicle that I would personally buy, for anybody in this space, this has to be at the very, very top of the list. It's got all the space you could want, even more that you can want with the second row space, and it's nearly as refined as its much more expensive Audi counterpart, and it's just a really nice product. How much better will the 2022 model year be than this? Well, like I mentioned at the beginning, I am slightly skeptical, but given that this is a vehicle that you can still go out and buy today and many, many years from now, I think this is going to be a very desirable vehicle still if you don't find yourself all that appealed to the 2022 midlife update. So there you go. That's been everything from me here on Hot Cars. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all of those other wonderful things really help this channel out a lot. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you again here soon.